So you see this acronym everywhere in India, MSME. But have you ever really stopped to think about what it means? Especially that first letter, the M. Well, today we're going to unpack that because that one little letter, it makes a world of difference for literally millions of businesses and honestly, for the entire Indian economy.
Okay, so you've probably heard both SME and MSME tossed around in conversations about business, right? And it's super easy to think, yeah, same thing. But, and this is a big but, they're not. And this isn't just about getting the letters right. In India, this one difference can decide if a small business gets that loan they desperately need, or if they're protected when a big client decides to pay late. It's a really big deal.
Here's a simple way to think about it. SME is kind of a generic, global word, like car. You know what it means, but it's pretty broad. MSME, on the other hand, is like a specific car model engineered just for India, with a clear set of rules and benefits. It's a legal definition. So before we get into the specifics of the Indian model, let's take a quick look at the global one.
Right, so before we dive into India's very unique system, let's just take a quick step back. What does the rest of the world even mean when they say SME?
SME just stands for Small and Medium Enterprises. It's the go-to term for any business that isn't, a massive corporation. But here's the catch. It's kind of like a chameleon. The definition completely changes depending on where you are in the world. There's no single universal rulebook, which can make comparing businesses across borders a little tricky.
And this slide really shows you what I'm talking about. Look at this patchwork. The EU, they care about staff count and turnover. The UK throws assets into the mix. Hong Kong, it's all about how many people you employ. It just goes to show what's considered a small business in one place might be medium, or not even on the map somewhere else.
So with all this variety around the globe, what did India do? Well, instead of picking a definition that kind of shifts and changes, India went in a totally different direction. It built a rock-solid legal framework with a very specific name, the MSME.
And you can see how this framework evolved over time. It started way back in '51 based on how many people you hired, but that was really hard to verify. So in 2006 came the big one, the MSMED Act, which switched the focus to investment, something you can actually track. Then, just recently in 2020, they updated it again, adding turnover to the mix and, this is key, getting rid of the old, complicated separation between manufacturing and services.
So what's in the name? With MSME, everything hinges on that first letter, M, for micro. And this was no accident. It was a very deliberate move to officially recognize and support the tiniest businesses. The corner shop, the local tailor, the person with a food cart. The whole point of the MSMED Act is to help these businesses not just get by, but to actually grow and succeed.
All right, so how does India actually draw the line? How do you know if you're a micro, a small, or a medium enterprise? Well, it's actually way simpler than you'd think.
Yep, forget all those complicated rules we saw in other countries. After that 2020 update, in India, it all boils down to just two numbers. That's it, your investment and your turnover.
And here they are, the whole system, clear as day. If your investment is up to 1 crore rupees and your turnover is under 5 crores, congratulations, you're a microenterprise. The same clear logic applies as you move up to small and medium. It's so straightforward, any business owner can look at this and know exactly where they fit.
But why bother changing the rules in 2020? Well, imagine a plant in a tiny pot. It can't grow. Before, businesses were almost scared to grow because they lose their MSME benefits. These new, higher limits are like giving that plant a much bigger pot. It gives businesses the freedom to get bigger and stronger without being penalized for their success. And this chart, wow, this really puts it all into perspective. A staggering 94% of all registered MSMEs in India fall into that micro category. Think about that. These aren't just numbers. They're the millions of family-run shops, the local artisans, the backbone of every small town and neighborhood in the country.
Okay, so we've established that the vast majority are micro. But if you're one of those business owners, why should you bother going through the process to register? I mean, what's actually in it for you?
Because for an entrepreneur in India, getting that MSME registration certificate, it's so much more than a piece of paper. It's basically a golden ticket. It unlocks an entire ecosystem of government support designed to help you succeed.
And what does this ticket get you? Well, the list is pretty long, but it all comes down to the big stuff. Getting loans more easily, a legal shield when customers don't pay on time, cutting through red tape, and getting access to all sorts of government programs. It's a whole support system.
Let's just focus on one of these because it is a total game changer.
Ask any small business owner what their biggest headache is, and they'll probably say chasing payments. Well, the MSMED Act is like a superpower. It says your buyers have to pay you within 45 days. And if they don't, they start getting hit with some serious compounding interest. For a small business, that's a cash flow lifeline.
And what about money? The biggest hurdle of all, right? We all know how hard it is to get a loan when you're starting out. But as a registered MSME, you get to jump to the front of the line at the bank. We're talking loans without collateral, lower interest rates, even tax breaks, all designed to get you the capital you need to turn your dream into a reality.
So we know that MSMEs get a ton of support. But what do they give back? What is the real impact of over 60 million of these businesses on the Indian economy? Well, get ready because these numbers are huge.
First up, GDP. Their contribution to the nation's gross domestic product, a massive 29%. Let that sink in. Nearly 1/3 of the entire Indian economy is powered by these businesses.
Okay, next, manufacturing. How much of the stuff that's actually made in India comes from them? An unbelievable 45%. Almost half of every single thing manufactured in this country comes from an MSME.
And they're not just selling at home. These businesses are major players on the world stage, driving a whopping 40% of India's total exports. When you look at those three numbers together, the picture is crystal clear. MSMEs aren't just part of the economy, they're the engine.
So, to boil it all down to one simple thought, SME is what the world calls a small business. MSME is India's plan to help them become big ones.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. When you have over 60 million of these businesses driving so much growth and creating so many jobs, are they actually the single biggest, most important engine for India's future? It's something worth considering.